Catherine. I'm a teacher here at Tranquil Space, and today we're going to be talking about breaking down the Vinyasa with a special focus on chaturanga, which is a pose in that series. So Vinyasa is a series of poses that are strung together in kind of a flow that we do repeatedly throughout our classes. And it's not to be confused with Vinyasa yoga, which is the style of yoga that we practice here at Tranquil Space. So one of the reasons I want to go over Vinyasa is I think it's often confused or very confusing for new students. Typically when you come to your first yoga class or your first few yoga classes, there's so much else to be thinking about that the Vinyasa is just another set of poses that people work to imitate to the best of their abilities. And often that can mean missing out on parts of this series of poses. For instance, chaturanga, which is actually a real pose but can often just be strung together and kind of missed in a Vinyasa for people who are newer to Vinyasas. So if that goes unchecked, if you continue to do this more imitation Vinyasa as opposed to this real true kind of expression of each pose, over time that can lead to injury. It can lead to not building enough strength in the right ways to begin to progress in your practice. So we're going to go through the correct way to do both kind of a beginner's version of a Vinyasa and then a more advanced practitioner's version. So, a Vinyasa is a series of poses, as I said, and it starts with downward facing dog. So you move from down dog, you come forward to plank pose, top of a push-up. You lower half or full chaturanga here. Inhale to a back bend, upward facing dog, and then exhaling back to down dog. So that is our Vinyasa. That's our very basic, real, full Vinyasa. What often happens for students is that they'll get parts of that, right? So we often see what some teachers here call a drive-by Vinyasa, right? Where you come from your down dog and it's kind of like this. So a little more of a flow. So it still looks a little bit like what you should be doing. But over time, you're not building up that strength that you would need for chaturanga to take it into that full expression of the pose. Similarly, sometimes we'll see people who lower all the way down and kind of release their legs. And then you're putting a lot of pressure on the low back if your legs are on the mat as you flow through this sequence. Right? So if you're still kind of in those stages where you're building strength to get into a Vinyasa, then we're going to have you work with half chaturanga and baby cobra. At least that's the way we teach it here at Tranquil Space. So for those who are new to this or who want to play around a little bit with this in your practice, for this kind of beginner's Vinyasa, you start in your downward facing dog. Come forward to plank pose. So in plank, you want your shoulders right over your wrist creases and the heels right over the balls of the feet. Low belly's pulling up and in. From here, you drop the knees for half chaturanga. Uncurl the toes and slowly lower down. You have the strength to pause here. Nice and strong, shoulders away from the ears. Do that. That will help you build up strength. And then lower all the way onto your belly. From here, we're lifting up to baby cobra. So it's a gentle, small back bend. And then curling the toes under, pressing all the way up and back to down dog. So for those who are a little bit newer to Vinyasa yoga, that's a great place to start. A great kind of series to work through, a sequence to work through when playing with Vinyasa in order to build up that strength for full chaturanga. For those who feel pretty confident in half chaturanga, then you're going to work towards full chaturanga. So I demonstrated that before, but I'll go through it a little slower this time, kind of talking about what you want to look for or focus on alignment-wise when getting into this pose. So for full chaturanga, I'm going to start again in our down dog. Inhale, you're coming forward to plank. Again, find that nice strong plank here, nice and engaged through the core. And then you lower down so that your arms are at a 90-degree angle. So elbows are lined up here with the torso, and then we're flipping the knees are lifted. So the only thing touching the earth here are the palms and the tops of the feet, nice and engaged through the core. Gaze is forward. We often see this crazy looking up towards the sky. Can put a little strain on the neck, so maybe just bring that gaze softly forward, engage the leg, and then curl the toes under, press up and back. So a little more involved, a little more intense. I'm not a little more intense than you might realize. And often what happens, as I showed you before, is people will do kind of a fast stringing together of these movements, and they lose the strength aspect. As you'll see when I demonstrated, chaturanga is a pose. you hold here, right? And a great way we often have people kind of practice this is how you should be in chaturanga. You want your upper arm to be lined up with the torso, lined up with the body here. This 90-degree angle with the floor. So one last little way to play with this pose, for those of you who are new to full chaturanga, is with a strap. So you want to get a strap that fits right around the upper arms, right? So I already went ahead and kind of got my strap situated. And you can play with taking chaturanga with the strap so that the strap supports your torso and doesn't allow you to go too low. So you'll come to down dog with that strap around the arms. It's a little awkward. Come forward to your plank. And then when you lower, that strap will catch you before you go too low. So another thing people often do is go too low. So this strap is a great way to test where you should be. Then you can move into your back bend and back into down dog. So lots of fun ways to play with this pose and with this sequence. But I just urge you to really try to kind of work in your body to find your version of a vinyasa that works for you. You don't have to go into full chaturanga if you're not quite there yet. And actually over time, if you work with half chaturanga, build up that strength, your body will benefit and your practice will benefit in the long run. So thanks so much for joining me. I hope you learned something.